Panelist.
Good morning.
Yes, I think before we start our today's session, good morning to everyone who's attending this event from wherever they are. Yesterday, we started this first of its kind exhibition, which is the first effort to do something on a virtual. We're very happy with the outcome of it. And we had lots of people yesterday, thousands of people who logged in from everywhere to see what exactly is happening. So I think the objective of connecting people from across the globe was really met. And when it is the first event, everybody is very apprehensive and is seeing how it really works. And there were there were a lot of people who were trying to tell us we're trying to enter but we cannot. So there are many challenges, but even then we have thousands of people who came in. So I'm really happy with the initiative we have taken. So this today, being the second day, the panel discussion, the first one would be on importance of exclusive codes and VHT products for infrastructure projects. And we have exciting panel members here. They are like experienced people, eminent speakers. So I welcome you all. I'm very happy that you all are here. And to take the discussion and the thing forward, let me start introducing our panelists. I would like to start with Mr. Sivaramakrishnan. So, Sivaramakrishnan Ravi Kumar is Assistant Vice President, Airport System Projects, Bangalore International Airport. He holds a BE degree in Mechanical Engineering. He's managing the Terminal 2 Airport System Projects and existing Terminal 1 upgrades. He has around 26 years of experience in the infrastructure projects, manufacturing and process industry operations and maintenance management. He has more than 16 years of experience in the aviation industry, having delivered projects like New Delhi Terminal 3, Mumbai International Airport Terminal 2, and Bangalore International Airport Terminal 1. He has worked with all major VHT OEMs, and he's really well connected with the industry. Welcome, sir.
Welcome.
My next panelist is Mr. R. Balakrishnan, is the General Manager and Head of MEP Design, ERDC Department of L&T Construction. He completed his BE Electrical from Delhi College of Engineering. He has been with L&T Construction Chennai for 24 years and is responsible for design in MEP area related to the commercial building and airports. He has more than 33 years of experience in construction of commercial buildings. His prior experience includes Auto Service T. Aurovilla, Pondicherry. He has handled more than 1,000 VHT systems across projects, including milestones like airports, airport hangars, HIL, DIL, MIL, BIL, and Kannur International Airport, MRO Nagpur, and C-17 hangar Ghaziabad. Thank you so much, sir. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
My next panelist is Mr. Abhijit Dandekar. He is a well-known person in the industry, and he is the Director, Supply Chain Quality and Product Safety, South Asia Pacific, Otis Elevator Company. An electronic engineer with post-graduation in marketing management, having over 33 years of experience at Otis. Abhijit has handled span of various functions at Otis. A member of ET25 P4 panel, Elevator and Escalator Code Committee of BIS. He has been licensed with government authorities for consultation amendment to local elevator codes for Maharashtra and Gujarat. He's a member of CED 46, P2 and P4 panels, responsible for drafting National Building Code of India. He's a member of IOSTC 178, WG4, 5, 6, 11, and 12 as well. Thank you, Abhijit, for accepting invitation and being here.
Thank you.
My next panelist is Mr. Rajesh Parvar. He's the Director of New Equipment Business Operation, Kone, India. He has completed Leadership and Management Program at INSEE, France, IMD Lucerne, Switzerland, and IM Ahmedabad after his graduation in Electrical Engineering with distinction. He has been managing frontline business operation of Kone, India and STARS, having 24 years experience with multinationals like Kone and ABB. He heads major projects in India for Kone, mainly high-rise and infrastructure business. He spearheads the execution of VHT requirements at Mumbai International Airport T2 Terminal, India Bulls Financial Center, India Bulls Sky, DAICEC, Oberoi 360-degree West and ICC for Kone. Thank you, Mr. Rajesh. Welcome. And
Thank you.
our moderator for today is Mr. Krishna Kumar. I'm sure all of you know him well and you all work together, but it's my honor to welcome him and introduce him. Krishna Kumar is the president and CEO of PAPL Corporation. He's a mechanical engineer by qualification. He joined Otis Elevator Company as a graduate engineering trainee and was trained in erection, testing, and commissioning of elevators. After successful tenure in sales and installation, KK moved to Mitsubishi Elevator, where he handled Tamil Nadu and Kerala. He joined PAPL in 2009 after spending close to 11 years in the elevator industry. PAPL is the first and only accredited inspection body exclusively in the domain of VHT industry. He's passionate and committed to enabling PAPL to create and maintain vision and mission to scale greater heights through best-in-class customer service, driving the organization goal to be process-oriented, customer-centric, and reliable partnership. Thank you so much. We have a wonderful panel here, and I hope you all have a great and engaging discussion. Thank you so much. Over to you, KK.
Thank you, Anita, and I welcome all the panelists. This is going to be a very wonderful interaction. This is not an interview. Let us have it more like a discussion panel rather than a panel discussion. So this panel discussion is very unique in the sense that we are discussing a topic with three major stakeholders. One, the developer, represented by Mr. Ravi. We have a turnkey contractor, represented by Mr. Balakrishnan. We have two major elevator contractors. One is Otis and one is Kone, represented by Abhijit and Rajesh. And this is quite an interesting subject. And the questions are to be answered by everybody. It is not a question, it's majorly a point of discussion. And everybody's point of view is most welcome, and it will be a very interactive session, I hope. Now, going to the subject, we have seen major infrastructure developments happening in this country. The design of a building is supposed to be unique architecturally. However, the facilities, services need to follow a manifested order. And in particular, the VHT equipment is not similarly intended in any two buildings in terms of design. Each is different and sometimes fulfilling only the architectural intent and not meeting the objectives requirement of the equipment in public buildings. So hence, the question here is, or a debate here is, are we looking for a specific standards to manage infrastructure projects, which not only speak about safety, it also speaks about security and other aspects of the elevator systems. Now I have my first question or point of discussion, which I would rather ask Mr. Ravi to start with. We have standards for elevators. The BIS and NBC are very exhaustive, and I think they're one of the best standards available in the world itself. Yet there are gaps when big infrastructure projects are designed. What do you think is the most striking concern that you feel needs to be addressed?
Yeah. KK, if you look at the NBC standards, it's quite exhaustively covered in terms of the planning details or the product details and the way how elevator have to be installed and tested, commissioned, and put into use when you do it. The inspection part of it and maintenance part of it, everything is beautifully covered there. So as you rightly said, it's quite a good document which people can understand what an elevator or a VST equipment is looking for. So so that is given in that. Beyond that, what does make a difference and what is missing over there as a gap, I would say it's one is you are looking for a maximum item which is going to really concern of a big gap what is there. Another thing, I do have a lot of other information also which could be added on, which shouldn't be missed out in the way how we frame up that missing the gap portion. So if you look at from the process point of view, airports are quite unique. You may be quite aware of how the airport process goes through. And in that, compared with other infra projects, airport project is something where you need to consider about the people movement, the material movement, as well as in terms of flight, and they really manage it from the automatic air traffic controllers. So they do play a big role in managing that. So if you look at the way the categorization of process, that plays more vital role in getting into a design, but would fit into a. So So the process part of it is very much missing in that particular book, though it talks about maybe a paragraph about what does the airport need to be considered, or any other metro or other um, infra project need to consider. Like, but if you go in further details, the most important thing is the process which is owned by the stakeholders or government agencies, maybe the security point of view, the way how equipment to be designed and where it has to be rightly placed and positioned. That plays a vital role, and that I see is a big gap, which is not very much detailed out in that codes. So this is one major point which I would touch upon. There are furthermore items to the finishes or the interior look and feel, the way how we look at the security point of view, like say NBC covers about CCTV, but it does give a choice to have CCTV or BMS interfaces. So in my opinion, airport by default should have all this kind of monitoring tools as default as a mandate. So the monitoring portion of it, like building management system or a central management system from a OEM provider. So these things should go in as a code, as a mandatory requirement. Like, so this is something which I like to emphasize on. So beyond that, I just maybe when in our discussions, I will come up with so many other points which are maybe missing or which are really important. Like.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi. Mr. Bala, you've been dealing with so many airports now. So you've been dealing with specifications, you've been dealing with finalizations. What do you think is the big gap that you notice?
Yeah, so I will just try to define what is given in the NBC as codes. The NBC 2016 is well written. Definitely, there are IS codes for elevators, and it also refers to EN and ISO and SIPC Guide D and CTBUH for emergency evacuation. But what it doesn't cover from the EN, SIPC or other codes is the one point he raised, it is the safety and security, how it has to be handled in different types of projects, especially airports where the public is more and malls. So probably we should get into different types of projects. The commercial office spaces should be categorized and how it is to be planned and what are the requirements for safety and type of lifts to be provided. And probably airports, it should be slightly different. As he said, there's a lot of security and other issues coming up. So it should be better monitored, or better rugged systems of motor and other things should be there, because it's a highly used space. Probably more people travel there, but unlike an office space and other things. The other gap, what I feel, these are, I mean, one is the categorization, like you should commercial, hotels, residential, probably factories should have something else, airports should be having something. And nowadays the infrastructure projects are quite large, wide in space and taller in space. Probably we need to look at how to handle the 60-meter heights or larger spaces. So probably this is what is the missing gaps, I feel, which should be covered in the form of code in all the lift requirements. Another interesting thing is there is no code for escalators and moving walkways from IS. Basically, NBC touches upon it, but it all refers to international codes like SIPC and EN. So probably we should look at forming our own IS codes, because escalators in airports and other areas, very important. People get away with lower specifications. As Mr. Ravi put it, it's a very thing that airport function is very important from passenger point of view. The quality of service, let me put it, the quality of service should be excellent. From that point of view, what is to be specified for the equipments to work in the heavy conditions, continuously used conditions, probably those are things to be added into this. So I think as a panelist and as a nation, we should look at forming our own codes and better codes. And we can also lead the international things. That's my point of view.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your opinion. Now I would ask Abhijit, having heard the market's opinion on this, I think what is your take?
Yeah, perfect. I think got good inputs. I'm just taking notes. Safety and security, as Vala said, it's for infra projects is not specifically mentioned. Maybe we can think of in the new revision what should be mandatory, as Ravi said, out of these optional features. What can be mandatory features, as well as what should be added in terms of safety and security. Yes, definitely we will talk about it. But just to answer what Bala said, I think we have a code for escalators and moving walks in India. We had IS 4591, which was very old, 1968, but has been now revised completely in 2020. So last year it was released. It's in 3 sections. So IS 4591, part 1, section 1, 2, 3 is now already out, and which can be used, which is in line with EN 115, EN 115-1. So it is quite aligned to international standard, but not the latest revision, because we always have a problem of copyright violations. So we need to take permission. So by the time we get permission from the new code, it takes some time anyway. But that's out, and for everybody, maybe I can share the standard screen if you want to know about it. From my perspective, yes, there are, apart from what Ravi and Bala mentioned, what I felt was there are major gaps. Like, in infrastructure projects, we generally have heavy duty escalators or public escalators, what we call it as. And moving walks are also heavy duty walks. Elevators also are equipped with luggage elevators, double entrance elevators, etc. So we really do not have a specific standard for public escalators. Even if you go with 2020 revision, it will just talk about the escalator or a moving walk. But for public escalators, we need different standards, different construction, different mechanisms. And I think that is very important, because those also will be used by all types of people, physically challenged people, blind people, normal people. So everybody is going to use them. And then we need very specific requirements that trolleys should not be taken on the escalator. So we need some balustrade in front of it. So all those things, come as extra requirements, but they are not documented anywhere. But that will also been taken up as one of the requirements which can come up. Then we also have a lot of requirements which are there. Like, for example, for infra projects, we need power management in a better way. We have all the equipment like air conditioning systems, lighting systems, which have got 3-star, 5-star ratings, but for elevator power consumption, which almost consumes around 8 to 10% of the power of the entire building, it doesn't have a power specification standard. So we need that also in place. I think we are working on that based on ISO 25745, 3 parts. So we are working on that. Similarly, ride quality, again, ride quality of lifts and escalators, there is no standard specified. So we need the standard for that, because that becomes very important from a user's perspective, because the experience has to be really good, because you are traveling, you don't need the extra stress on you. So right quality of both these equipments is a very important thing. Now again, on infra projects, everything is now connected to computers, right? Everything is monitored through computers. We have EMS or elevator management system, escalator management systems, and the moment you are connected through internet, you are open to cybersecurity threats. So that also is one of the important standard that we need. So how to protect all these devices which are connected by computer. Otherwise, when I was young, I had seen the movie Die Hard, wherein Bruce Willis used to control the elevators. The villains used to control the elevators. They blocked everybody, and then they took the control of the building. So that was a science fiction at that time, but now it is reality. And same thing can happen if somebody hacks into your system, because you are now IoT devices connected to it, and then we can start controlling the elevators, move them up and down, lock them, block them, whatever you want. But we need to protect them against that. So we need a cybersecurity standard. So these 4 things, according to me, are gaps which we need to really work on very fast. Thanks.
Thank you, Vijit. I would like Rajesh to give his views on that.
Yeah, I think some of the points have been covered, and I will just add whatever is not covered so far. Firstly, codes, whatever are prevailing today, be it NBC, BIS, or EN standard, global code at this point of time, They are generalized code, means they are not only dedicated for infra, it is known. And what happens is there is a conflict of code many times. I'll give you one example. For example, mirror to be provided in elevator or not. If you go up as per EN 81-70, 5.2.3.2, it will say mirror need to be provided. And it is must, because there should be wherever you take wheelchair inside the elevator, mirror needs to be there to see it. But if you go refer fire code, then it will say mirror should not be there because it will fall down in the event of fire. So when we went into such a conflict of situation, then it totally dilutes safety. Neither you will get mirror, neither your elevator is suitable for wheelchair, because somebody at his discretion takes this call. So that is that's why infra needs to be focused specifically as a code point of view. That is first point. Second point, regarding TRAFCAL, there are general guidelines in all standard. But if you see infra now, if I can show one slide, Krishna Kumar, on the screen, if you allow me.
Yes.
Mr. Rajesh, just give him an access for.
I think it is disabled so far. But okay, point is total TRAFCAL.
It's done. You can share it.
No, it is still showing me it is disabled. Screen is disabled for me.
Okay, just 1 minute, I'm checking. Okay. From our end, it shows you can share the screen. Is it still showing that for you?
For me, it is showing host disabled participants screen sharing.
Okay.
Okay, so
yeah, please try now.
yeah, now I think I can share it. Thanks. So these are some data, I think experts on the panel may be knowing it, but this is for the audience. How infra is getting day by day increase, and the number of people using our airports and metros. So this is a different ball game. The point of showing this slide is infra is a different ball game, and same standard with few of mandatory thing, as Mr. Abhijit said, and many of optional things may not work. We have to have many pertinent standard which are applicable for this. So first is about how much equipment to be provided per footfall. There are guidelines in the standard, but nobody specifies it. For example, how many elevators and escalator to be provided for, say, T2 or any T3 international airport per square feet based on this traffic. It is not defined. It is left to traffic calculation of some consultant. That should not be there. There has to be defined criteria. The second point is stretcher lift. Whether to be provided or not, it again depends on the discretion of the person who is deciding this. So it is very pertinent that for metros, every platform should have a stretcher lift, and defining on some airport, some square meter area, we should have a stretcher lift that is to be defined. Third part, I think optional safety, Mr. Dandekar also mentioned, and Mr. Bala also mentioned. So audio announcement, this is again a conflict of code, because we have silent airport, whether to provide audio announcement for or not safety point of view. So this needs to be clarified after a lot of deliberation. Then last is like Mr. Dandekar again mentioned, approaching escalators and auto walks with trolleys. So bollards need to be mandatory. Now again, this providing bollards is optional as per standard, and there can be leeway taken out of it. Again, one more point is auxiliary brakes. Above 6 meters, it is mandatory, but below 6 meters, it is not. But for infra, it is must. It is a must thing. And the last thing which I would like to put is cognizance of technology. Mr. Ravi Kumar touched upon the BMS, but now I'll just show on the screen there are technologies available by manufacturers. This is only Kone I am showing, but I am sure Otis has it, Schindler has it, everybody has it, of connected services. BMS only takes very few parts of the elevator or escalator, but these kind of connected services really keeps the 24/7 across the timeline, and this can be of very much use. You can see this slide wherever even it can be monitored, door operations can be monitored, then 24/7 addressing the step whether there is a gap can be monitored, and whether if somebody in the terms of entrapment somebody fails to push alarm button, that can also be noticed. But this needs to be mandatory for all infra. But code as of now, since they are not taken this technology as a part of their cognitive efforts, is not available. So if we really think in this direction, definitely these gaps can be addressed. Mr. Krishna Kumar, that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh. I think I totally agree with you. I would also like to inform you that tomorrow Mr. Abhijit is making a presentation on addressing the fire requirements across the country. Okay. Currently, each city has got its own rules. Each town has got its own rules, and you can't manage this way for a long. And it is becoming more of personal choices on fire. No, there's no standard as such. So I think that will be addressed. Second thing is, I'm sure this particular discussion will lead to a lot of newer thinking in terms of how to address these gaps. Now, looking at this further, not only BIS but internationally also there are no specific designs for infrastructure projects. Do you see this as a major bottleneck for project developers, Mr. Ravi?
To some extent, yes, because as Rajesh said, we really start doing a design of an airport. We do hire consultants from abroad, and maybe US, UK, or maybe European countries. Like, so what happens is they mostly look at their area of operations, and the Indian context is very much missing there. So look at from airport point of view, the regulations country to country is not the same. So country to regulations, if I just give a simple example of in an airport where passengers are allowed into a terminal, if you go to Singapore or any other European airport, you can go all the way up to the immigration point or checkpoint where a public would be allowed to go in. Whereas India, they keep all the public outside the airport. They don't permit them to go inside. So this is a simple thing which anybody can understand this. And if you go further into the complexity of the way how the segregation happens based on regulations, there's the people who are departing and arriving is not allowed to mix in Indian context. Whereas in other airports, yes, there are some airports they give a leeway to mix them at some point of time. Other thing is international passengers and domestic passengers. We never allow them to mix. So these are been very strictly formulated as per our Bureau of Civil Aviation or Customs Regulations point of view and our immigration point of view. So this is more stringent to be followed when we really design an airport which is suitable to Indian context. So when I say that, an elevator which could run from all the levels, like maybe 4 levels or 5 levels in a building, it's not allowed to open in all the levels. So we have to, so what has happened in the early stages is a US consultant doesn't understand all this context of issues. He just puts doors at every level. So the access is provided everywhere. When we do an exercise with our regulators, they come with the ply and nail and then they just lock it permanently. Some floors have been locked. So I would say it's like we create some infrastructure which has not been put into use. This is like a waste of money and effort. And we lose space in doing that additional lobbies and things in that so-called levels which is not supposed to be used. So these are things which we unnecessarily not want to incur. And okay, from my experience in the last 2 or 3 airports here, the third airport is the one which I got the opportunity to clean up all this kind of thing which comes from external world. So if you have the ability or the opportunity to work in an airport right from the scratch, then you know how to design an airport, how to put it in the right context. And if you sometime join in between already a created infra design, then it's slightly difficult for you to change all these things. Then you have to just only either disable it or close it per use. So this puts us, okay, give the opportunity for me to be in Bangalore Terminal 2 to just nullify or reduce these kind of unwanted issues. And we more or less narrow down to extent where such kind of things shouldn't fall in place. Like, so when you say that from Indian context, security context point of view, people understanding about the flows is very important. So, and grouping them in the current NBC codes, IAS, or any other international codes, it talks about passenger elevator, goods of freight elevator, maybe the stretcher and things. So it's all common terminologies. When it comes to airport, we do call like the passenger category could be in the maybe the higher hierarchy, under which we cover like real passengers. There are common public, there are staff, there are back-end other special VVIP or VIP treatment people, and people take to hotels. See, airport is one of the infra which covers almost all the infra. I would say you take metro, there's a metro station in the airport. You say hotel, yes, it is a hotel in the airport or outside the airport. And there's a high-risk building, yes, we have a ATC. So like that, we do have so many things which put into airport as a complex system to handle. So people have to understand airport is just not the way how it is be thought in a smaller scale and a larger scale. We talk about an airport which could handle a 40 plus million passengers per annum or 60 million per annum, 25 or 5. The infrastructure, the requirements and needs are very different. And the most complex part is when you really do a project in phases. It's how to do that phasing in a way it is not going to obstruct or have any impact on your regular operations, and how you still carry forward your construction activities in the next phase where it would come in 5 years, a 10-year term down the line. So just to touch upon Bangalore T2, we are doing a 40 to 40 plus or 40 million terminal, which could be done in phases. So the first phase we are doing at 25 million, the next phase will be another 20. So we have a building which has got a considerate of 45 million as a design, but it is not fully detailed for the entirety. So even the power, the way the equipments of VHT have to be placed, they play a very crucial role in designing and keeping a very efficient and a very convenient and comfort flow for people who will use that building. And this building is going to last for maybe, I don't know how many years, like 25 years, 50 years, like. So that when you look at that vision and see how to place them and the right sizing, that's very important and crucial. I would say that these things are very much missing in the codes. So probably people like me, I would say I just been blessed to be in the airport in this field to do this and understand the situation and take all the inputs from VST as a OEM point of view, or the way the regulators would look at and see the vision how we would be operating this terminal in the next 20 years or 25 years, like. So that much inherence of knowledge and vision have to be there in designing it. So that really requires a lot of things as experience. Plus, you need to know the country regulations and what is going to be in across the globe as well. So this matching and bringing it forward is not that easy to really put up together.
Well said, Mr. Ravi. Actually, I would want to ask Mr. Balakrishnan one very important question, because you've had experience of doing airports across the globe. In the Middle East, you've done a lot of airports. So you would have faced similar challenges, because no two airports are same, no two standards are same. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, so coming to Mr. Ravi, I think is well said on the airport atmosphere. There are different applications, as he rightly said. And now international code also talks about, how to design it for such large things, whether it's, we have done internationally also and domestic also, many airports. And of course, T2 also, we are doing it. A lot of efforts between BIAL and us to get it right. What I feel major thing missing is when there are multiple entries and multiple levels of flow of people, there is no guidelines in any of the codes. Probably I've read one book, Gina Burney, that Elevated Traffic Handbook. It talks about something about how to do the designs when there are multiple flows in a large infrastructure thing. Probably we can take clue from there, probably put it into the code. And as Rajesh and Abhijit were telling, there's no mandatory things. So that's why people in different airports, if you see, everything is different. It's not the same plant for the same applications. I think that sort of things we need to get into it. And that should start with, if there are multiple entries into the airport atmosphere, there are multiple entries, different security zones and other things, how the architecturally it flows and how much population in each area it goes. That should be the basis for deciding.
Correct.
Otherwise, there is no point. I mean, there'll be this ride quality will be poor. There'll be always complaints. Okay, I'm sure Mr. Ravi Kumar would have faced a lot of issues like that.
Yeah.
But we'll be in a position, we'll be in a position not to upgrade it because it's not easy to upgrade like other systems, an elevator on an escalator system. So I think this incorporation of architectural structural planning into the elevator thing, we need to touch all those aspects into the codes so that we get the best thing. And the right quality measurement, probably Ian defines it. Probably we should get it here also. There's no measurement for right quality or the performance of everything based on the population. There's no testing. Like in the baggage handling system, if you see, we tested with 5,000, 10,000 bags. Probably we should have more stringent testing in the infrastructure project. I think these are all to be made mandatory. These are few things. There are a lot more things we can do. These are few things I thought should be done for a thing.
Yeah,
and no international code also defines this.
Yes, certainly. And I would also like to add that there is a big gap in terms of defining standards of the braking jerk. So most of the time, what happens is when the elevator breaks because of power failure or something, people think there's a free fall happening because basically there's no slip because of the gearless nature of the equipment now. I think there should be a defining number so that a lot of speculation can be put to rest. So I think that also is a very important aspect.
And one more aspect in airport I would like to slightly add, lift versus escalator. So then there is a confusion, how many lifts to be used if there is an escalator. There's no definition anywhere.
Yes.
Yes, lift has to be there for some type of people handicapped or something, but there's no definition when you have both, how much, what should be the combined effect of quality.
So now,
okay, just if you allow me for 1 minute,
please.
add on to Bala points, like few things, but things are like missing. So if you, when we put up the design of the zones, you rightly said about the zones, how we have to really do the traffic analysis. When you go to a common consulting people, they just go with the peak numbers of airport, what we're going to handle in terms of passengers. They really miss the staff people. The back-end staff, they change over the ship. The huge mass of people, like a movie theater, people come out like a mad rush. So the people coming and going in, so that amount of peak is more than the peak of airport passenger will pass through. So these numbers, normally these people miss it really. Then when we really put it to operations, and after a few, maybe a year or two, you realize, oh, it's not enough. A lot of saturations are happening. So having all this experience in probably in Bangalore, we already taken into consideration really per zone, who are the people who are going to where and how they are being handled, and the numbers all more on a realistic fashion we have taken with additional buffers and facilities we have put in place. So that is something which is correct what Bala said. And when it comes to the comfort in terms of ride quality, I always look for the best ride quality. I used to demand with Rajesh or with other OEMs who will come and work with me. So we always look for a high level of leveling accuracies and the right quality. I always insist to go for and the guide use only rollers, not rather your shoes. So the shoes gives a way to just give the jerk and things. So we don't allow the tolerance to happen. People always come and argue with me, yes, it's only applicable to high-rise buildings. I said, yes, it's applicable to high-rise building where you do that. Bring that level of comfort here because the kind of audience whom we are taking through is not the same. And people always expect the best of the best. Yes. So when you want to give a best of the best experience, then you have to pull out and push all these things inside and put together to a good quality of product. And what a passenger would experience also will be as best.
Thank you.
Krishna, if you allow me one comment on Ravi Kumar, I remember one thing I cannot stop myself from mentioning it here. You mentioned about Trafcal, Ravi, and this we are very particular inside terminal building worrying about Trafcal. But the most ignored area about Trafcal is the parking area. and where a lot of actual traffic happens. A passenger comes with boatload of luggage. And this typically my experience with to Mumbai, I am saying, when they are out of the terminal building and going for car, then the traffic probably we could have done better. Elevators are good. We have provided the elevators there. They are sturdy, but it could have been either elevator could have been more, or we could have planned it better. So this parking area is the one thing we normally ignore when we think of traffic.
Correct. Correct. I agree.
Just to add on there, it was like people went by the peak passenger numbers. They forgot the public who are coming to the airport. From villages or from rural side, to send one person, a whole part of village will come to send off. So that many people, if they just take the shuttle, the MLCP elevators, they completely occupy that. The real passengers who have to really go out of the terminal or come to the parking or go out of the parking, they get stuck. So these are the realities of the experiences, what you really get to. And region-wise also, this gives the behavioral is more important. So if you're connected with around a lot of villages around you, or maybe the city just has got close connectivity with villages, you'll see a lot of kind of people coming and sending off taking care of the people who wanted to just go or come. So these numbers are quite, I would say, it's difficult to estimate. So yes, that lessons were learned and then things were added over there. So it not necessarily be the same with, if you go to Pune, it may not be the same kind of numbers it will follow. So Mumbai and Delhi are quite, I would say, critical places where people come overnight. They come in a bus. So even in Bangalore also, people come in a bus and stay around here. So send up people or receive people in the early morning. So these things put us in the kind of contact.
Yeah, what I would like to add for Mumbai, probably some mix of escalators should have been done along with the lifts, probably to the east. And one more point we should add is look at futuristic traffic. I think that's missing in the infrastructure designing of airports. Most of our airports are operating at more than what it is designed for. Correct me, Mr. Ravi, if I'm wrong, because if you declare 25 million, probably they operate at 28 million passengers. So
actually, see this number, see there are a few things like when we design, there's a peak number which has been taken on an hour. So that peak number for which the entire design numbers will go through. When it comes to million, it depends on the number of hour of operation when you really forecast for a terminal. So your peak number of hours, say 4 hours in a day is going to be your peak. Remaining hours are going to be non-peak, like that percentage of non-peak. What happens in reality is after 10 years, the non-peak hours get filled by the new slots. So your capacity when you calculate the non-peak plus peak would add to a certain value. That could be say 25 million. So it's not necessarily that 25 have to be kept always. It could go explode more than 25. It would go to say 35 as well. So with the same infrastructure, you will still be able to handle 35 million or 30 plus million. So that's a place where people have a kind of have a bit of misunderstanding or a gap in understanding. So sustaining peak, so there we call as a sustaining peak. Sustaining peak is very, very crucial because equipment can operate for 1 hour in its peak capacity. But if you put the same equipment to run for say 4 hours or 5 hours, then you see the failures, the wear and tear, all these things goes for, that's why in airports we ask for the best of the best quality, the highest quality level, what OEM could make it.
So KK, I would like to also add
Please.
a point here. As we are looking at the international standards, like availability of international standards for infrastructure project, none are available at the moment specifically for that. But we are trying to align a lot of international standards in India, like for example, EN 8120 now is getting adopted as ISO 8100, which will now become an Indian standard, going forward next year onwards. But what is going to happen is we still have state-wise control in India. Even if there is a BIS standard or a National Building Code of India, it is not the law of the land in that state, unless it is erected by that state. For example, we have 29 states in India, out of which only 11 states have the lift roads. And out of those 11 states, only 5 states say that, Indian standard is the law. All others have their own law, like West Bengal has a separate lift and escalator rule. Gujarat has separate lift and escalator rule. Assam has that. Bombay, Maharashtra has a separate escalator rule. Delhi has the same thing. So we need to comply with that requirement, because unless that is complied with, the licenses or permission to use the lifts, etc., are not going to get generated. And even if I make an Indian international standard and then align Indian standard to international standards, this state-wise adoption is a crucial part in that. We are trying to make it a central law like Indian Electricity Act or maybe Indian traffic rules. They are all countrywide rules. They are not statewide rules. But elevators and escalators are statewide rules. So we wanted to have one common rule across India, and it should be a central act and central rule. So DPIIT, we already put a request that there has to be an lot of accidents here and public usability area, and we need a central law for that. And then once a central law is adopted, a QCO, what they call it as a quality control order, is passed, then we need certification for a lot of components, safety components. We need a standard law across the country, and then it is worth introducing an international standard straight away into Indian standards, so that it becomes the law of the land. Because without which it is very difficult to enforce, because we have laws for everything, but it's extremely difficult to enforce this thing because of the government infrastructure and authorities and varying nature of those requirements.
I think that is the biggest bottleneck here. Every state has got its own law, and these laws are passed left, right, and center on individual fancies.
Yes,
And
that's right.
currently, if you see, there's a law in Haryana that talks about providing UPS for elevators.
15 minutes, unnecessarily
15 minutes.
burdening
And
the people.
even that is a very vague, even if UPS is there, it does not address the other aspects of the requirement of safety.
That's right.
So it's all half-baked requirements. I think there must be a unifying system that actually discusses. And basically, my next question is that all our standards, basically, be it a local elevator standard or a national elevator standard, it generally talks about basically loads. It talks about indoor-outdoor application. It talks about traffic handling. It doesn't. It talks about equipment protection. It talks about service people being protected, but it generally does not dwell upon security aspects of it. How people are going to be safe, not only because of the equipment, but because of the environment in which they are operated. For instance, don't you think it should be mandatory that any elevator operating in public buildings should be a see-through elevator with glass panels and glass doors? Or should it not be mandatory that the elevator should be provided with adequate number of CCTV cameras, such things? What is your take on that?
Yeah, that's definitely required. As you rightly said, for security, Bala also mentioned earlier that safety and security is a black spot still, which we need to address, especially CCTVs and how it should be, because there are a lot of requirements for CCTV also. If somebody cuts the wire, it should be immediately alarmed. So all those things are required, especially on the public places like airports and railway stations. We need features wherein you can protect certain floors for public. We need a coded access or a card reader access or something like that. We need direct elevators going into security zones for VIPs, etc. And then we need coded access for that. So all these things are currently manually controlled, and can always there are chances of errors happening in that. So safety and security is area which is never covered, maybe because it was never thought of, that in the general public it will be so much required, but definitely yes, in infra projects it is required, and a lot of things that need to be mandatory in fact, I would say.
Yes. And going to Rajesh, now I'm coming to you regarding accessibility. So we've been speaking about safety and security, but don't you think accessibility is also equally important in infra projects, where the visual indicators, the buttons, the kind of access and the space before the elevators and escalators? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's what I also mentioned during my earlier pitch, that present standards, including global, and they talked about all these as optional items, be it accessibility part or visual indicator part, or where, like as you mentioned about visual signages. So this all they talk about optional item, but for public building and infrastructure, it has to be made mandatory. That is what the point is. I spoke about bollards earlier, escalators, or voice announcement system, or don't approach escalator other wrong end. This kind of announcement, it is absolutely essential, as you rightly suggested, to make it mandatory. And unless we make that mandatory, this safety aspect, what we talked about, will not be taken into it. We spoke a lot about the state-wise law that Abhijit has elaborated very well. Now, the challenge is standards have been specified, but the standards are suggestive. They are not law. And there is the catch, right? So if we follow that route, then for infra also, it will be very, very difficult. Only one way, because from, let me be very tell you from as an association point of view, from elevator, we have been pushing this to make it mandatory all across country, but it is still a long way. So if infra waits for that, all states will be governing by common law. I think probably I will surely will retire. So we should not wait for that. For infra, we should have at least a separate movement having separate laws, a separate act, or we can say separate standard, which is mandatory. There is nothing like optional. This will have 2-3 advantage. First is, like you mentioned, about visual things, and our crowd also will get used to it. When they behave in public, this is the way elevator you have to approach. This is the way escalator you have to approach. Now, suppose Ravi Kumar has done fantastic Bangalore airport with all safety norms. Same passenger, if he goes to Nagpur airport and he finds that there are no rules for elevator and escalator, then we will not get disciplined as a country. The point is uniformity across the country on this visual standards, visual aspect is of paramount importance. And that's why common code I strongly advocate it.
Very good, very good. I'm with you on that. Now, I would like to dwell upon one very important, serious aspect that is going around the world. That is called sustainability. You heard of this GRI reporting, where sustainability reporting has become mandatory for the top 1,000 listed companies, I think now currently. And of late, all these multinational companies and international companies are talking about ESG, that is environment, social, and governance. How do you think your equipments can align in meeting these sustainability requirements, as well as the social and governance requirements of these multinationals, where the investment is based on something called sustainable investment? When investors come and invest in projects, they are looking at something called a sustainable investment. How do you think you can? I would like to start with Rajesh, then I would take others' opinion.
Yeah, sustainability is point of view. There are two things. One is environmental, how much we care. So, and how my equipment is environmental friendly. And the most important aspect is energy consumption part. Now, again, this part is also left to the optional, how much consumption every manufacturer can design his equipment for. And then there is no standard specifying to it. So minimum energy consumption, there has to be some standard which is mandated for some particular elevator application, how much energy consumption you can allow. And there could be many such things, like for example, regenerative drive, which can be mandated, which will help us in reducing energy consumption. And apart from that, there has to be defined a phasing out plan by manufacturer. Like I'm making a particular elevator equipment, all those components, do I have like a scrapping plan or degrading plan? So these are the new things which are coming up in the internationally. Now sustainability, all the leading manufacturer has this plan, including carbon credits. But this will take certainly more time, but this is the future coming in the wake of sustainability. Not only about this, but in your office spaces also, the way you have a support system, a maintenance support system for elevator, how much sustainable, less energy consumption processes you utilize. All these norms are slowly will be coming in the sustainability way. And this is the future. Definitely after 10 years, situation will not be like this. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Rajesh. Now, Abhijit, your take on that, on this ESG, aligning the elevator systems to the ESG requirements. You're all large companies. You're not small companies. So you have a social commitment, to make products that are compliant with these requirements. What is your take?
Yeah, so definitely sustainability and renewable energy are the buzzwords now. So we need, or we have some elevators which can work on solar panels or solar energy, also on the wind power, battery operated elevators, especially for small heights and villas and apartments. So that helps a lot in terms of sustainability improvements, as well as energy efficiency measurements that we do. And just to add, recently Bureau of Indian Standard has released one new Indian standard on which is called as the SNEL code. That means safety norms for existing lifts. That means whenever we modify the law or whenever we modify Indian standard, it is always prospective. It is never retrospective. That means it's always applicable to the new elevators. So all old elevators are still under risk. So how to cover that? How to take care of those risks? So there is a law which is now come out, which is IS I think 17491, which talks about safety upgradations required by identified risk which has been there. For example, infrared curtains, or automatic landing doors, fire resistance doors, which are not there on the old. So all these things, they will come up eventually, so that the life of the equipment will become increased, and we don't have to scrap this equipment quite often. And because old equipment, if you see, are all lubricating type of with oil, using hydraulics. If you go, a lot of hydraulic oil is there. There is no proper procedure for disposing of that huge amount of oil. That creates an environmental issues everywhere. If we have so much of electronic waste, which I don't know how it's going to world is going to handle it, but we should not create the waste in the first place. So the elevators have to be lubrication free. They should be on the renewable energy, and basically they should not use all such hazardous material as oil, mercury, chromium, or asbestos, etc. So that it becomes better elevator in as far as environment is concerned. You're on mute.
Yeah, thanks, Abhijit. I am now addressing this to Mr. Ravi. See, airports, are not small. They are huge, and almost you have about 100, 120, 150 elevators, escalators, and they're all power guzzlers. And how do you think, this alignment with ESG rating or system is going to help you?
Rajesh said, what is the regenerative motors when we use it? Probably there's energy savings, is what being claimed, but reality, if you look at the number of floors it has to go up, then where you really recover the energy back, that is not really happening in terms of the heights where we work with. 2 or 3 levels doesn't really give you that kind of benefit. But there are OEMs, they provide as a default regenerated drives. Yes, we do it, but how far it has been utilized, what is the utilization, what is the net gain we got from there? So this analysis or informations are missing, and we are not able to understand what is the reality. Though we do have the equipment maybe 10 years ago, which has been running with regenerated drives, whether we really got the benefit out of it or we are not 100% able to analyze that fact. So this is something OEMs, when they really put up the equipment, they should have the mechanism to measure that. So unless otherwise, yes, we invest something more, but we don't get, are we really getting the gain or not, that we're not sure. So this is something I would emphasize all OEMs to consider to get this gap to be closed out. And yes, as an airport, though I would say on a commercial level or on a technical level, the per square meter area, what we use for a lift shaft or maybe escalator, this also plays a bit of role. Even every square inch or square meter we save, it is good for us to put it for another use. So in that way, standardizing the equipment, elevator, what maybe a Kone makes or Schindler makes or Otis makes, the X and Y doesn't proportionally fit so closely. They do have their own standards. They try to fit there what the shaft or the well we have. So that if probably if we have to narrow the gap and come to a level so that when we really construct the building, because as a EPC, Bala would agree, they make the maximum shell size or the shaft size and then leave it there, and they call the OEMs later. So when they do it, either
I agree with that.
Yeah. So these are things which probably though may not be a standard way of measuring the sustainability or the saving part of it, this also qualifies in terms of the cost what we spend on it. So we want to really see the sustaining part of it. So we have to really take from the scratch and standardizing things, and between OEMs, they should narrow down the differences. And that is one thing. And then from material of construction point of view, there should be some innovative materials they should bring in to make the car and things a little lighter. So the drive doesn't require that much same level of carrying load. You may carry the number of people or for the square meter area, but the car as such, the dead weight of it should be a little balanced or could be reduced as much as possible. So these are things which I would see where we could look on to improve upon to consume less and put the right product in with the right drives.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I go to Mr. Bala, I want to mention that the poll is ready, and I would like people who are watching here to answer those poll questions. Okay. So I think, Mr. Bala, now I'm going to ask you slightly a different question here. See, you are a EPC contractor. You do so much of purchase. How do you evaluate these purchases, especially with VHT equipment, in terms of their energy consumption or their sustainable designs when you take decisions for procurement?
Hello. Yeah.
Yes, sir, please.
Basically, when we evaluate from the design point of view, we have some specifications, definitely. We also look at energy consumptions, noise levels, another thing which nobody has talked about, noise levels which it can generate inside the elevators. Basically, even the fan noise could be very disturbing for passengers. So these are some things which people miss out. Okay, even this thing. And in the escalator, there are different categories, light, medium, heavy, intensive. So based on the applications, it should be selected. Like if there are more than 20,000, intensive should be selected. These are some things which will go a long way in the sustainability thing. You have to choose the right product for the right requirement, energy saving, noise level, it should not create disturbance. Another thing not defined anywhere is what should be the life of equipments, which we don't get it very easily from the OEMs. So probably you make the life more, probably it is more sustainable. This is one aspect which all of us could look at. I know it's a wear and tear equipment, but if you increase the life, it is more sustainable. That is some things we look when we do the technical evaluation. But of course, when it comes to commercials, there are some issues. All are not uniform. So there are some issues coming in. Mr. Ravi brought in an important point. See, our standards is not compulsory. So each OEM has a different size for the same capacity. I think that should be eliminated. And if we go for an international lift, the problems are more. I mean, the lift, I have to make the longest width and longest length and give a provision because civil cannot be stopped. I think these anomalies should be stopped so that we are economical. As he said, every square inch in an airport or an infrastructure area is very important and costly. So these are some gaps which needs to be narrowed down, I think.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bala. I think we've had a very nice session today. I think the outcome is there's a common agreement that we need to have a standard for all infrastructure projects. First. Second thing, it should address the basic requirements in terms of security and accessibility. Third, it should align itself with the ESG performance requirements. I think sustainable designs that are long-lasting. I think this is the takeaway. I think if anybody has got anything else to share, you may please tell us now.
Yeah, we need one common harmonized code also, across the country.
Even I think the recently harmonized codes also have a lot of issues. You know that the 2016 code for physically challenged people has also a lot of gaps between the standards and those codes.
Another thing, this NBC is actually prescriptive. It's not mandatory.
Yes, I
Except
think
for
it
the
should be a law.
except for the life safety code. So
Yes.
there are issues. I think as a joint team, we should make everything mandatory. We should make all the states agree that this is mandatory. And there is also this thing on sustainability in NBC 2016. Probably the lift sustainability also can be added in that. This is something we could look at.
One thing on the look and feel of the interiors, we didn't talk much about it. So that plays important role when we handle VVIPs or CIP people, or maybe to give airport has got a theme to work with, and then the interiors of elevators, the OEM, what they support in providing that customization should also be quite open, because we have a lot of restrictive levels of things, and we have to go and find another new consultants or any other people outside, specialist guys or experts outside to fit it out. So this place where I see a vacuum or a gap, where the industry also have to jump in to bring the best out of it. Because it's not only the same stainless steel boring panels remain there. So that need to improve upon to see what best we can bring it out of it. Because we have an art theme or what to say, more of the best materials, we could give a backlit information or dynamic digitalizations are there. So there's so much of expectation from the sector like airports, where we wanted to customize certain areas.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, everybody. Anita, over to you.
Yes. Thank you so much. I think it was one of the most engaging sessions, and I feel this, especially the infrastructure projects and the elevator industry, I think we should have more sessions on this, because there are many areas still needs to be taken care. So definitely we will plan more sessions like this and bring everybody together. But thank you so much. I think it was really enlightening for all the people who participated and attended. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting us, and all the best.
Thank you so much, sir.